This is why you can't lose weight and 13 insulin resistance symptoms. So, why should you listen to me? I was featured on the first ever carnivore TV show, Reverse TV series. I have a PhD in nutrition and exercise physiology from the University of Miami. And I taught for over a decade at the University of Miami in the American College of Sports Medicine. I've coached thousands of clients so far, and you can check out the testimonials on DRZALDIVAR.com. And most importantly, I struggled with my weight ever since puberty hit, and it took me decades to finally figure out how to get out of it once and for all and stop the yo yo dieting. And I was able to lose 30 pounds and maintain it for years effortlessly. So I do feel your pain because I know what it's like to feel like I cannot lose weight no matter what I do. And so that really was my life for the better part of my life. And I feel your frustration more than you know. Um, it was even harder for me because my brainwashing during my education as a classically trained dietitian made it very difficult for me to see the truth and what I really needed to do because we were taught that we need to eat seven minimum servings of grains every single day, and the more the better, and steer clear of the fats. And for somebody with genetics like me, which is very common in the population, we don't do well with carbs. We have a very low tolerance level for carbohydrates. And so we develop insulin resistance. And that is like, if you're trying to lose weight, it's like you're driving with the brakes on. So, how prevalent is insulin resistance? It's 50% of Americans who have been tested have been shown to have a mild form of diabetes, which is insulin resistance. So most of us have it. And if you don't reverse course as soon as possible, usually within 10 to 15 years, you will develop type 2 diabetes. So it is not a joke. But the good thing is that it is very much so reversible. And in this video, I will show you how. So what is insulin resistance etiology or like the cause of insulin resistance in a nutshell? When you're eating carbohydrates, any form of carbohydrates, it's going to raise your blood glucose levels. And when you raise your blood glucose levels, your pancreas is going to secrete insulin to try and bring that down into a normal range. The problem is that we've been eating carbohydrates, far too many carbohydrates for far too long. So our blood sugars is constantly being challenged. It's constantly going up. And so the pancreas tires out trying to pump out all this insulin all this time to try and bring down your blood glucose level. And what happens is that the receptors for insulin on the cell surface of your cells, they start to get damaged or destroyed. So your pancreas is pumping out all this insulin for so long and at a high level, and the insulin receptors are starting to get damaged. So now you end up in this situation, this insulin resistance situation, where your blood sugar levels are high and your blood insulin is high. And insulin is also known as the fat storage hormone. And so imagine trying to lose weight when you have chronically elevated fat storage hormone or insulin running in your blood. And so we need to break that cycle. As you can see in this graph here, in this image, we have two main types of fat. We have the subcutaneous fat, which is the fat right under our skin, and we have the visceral fat, which is the fat that is behind our abdominal muscle layer. The more visceral fat you have, the more dangerous it is for our health. When we have chronically high insulin because we've been eating too many carbohydrates above our tolerance level for too long, not only is subcutaneous fat elevated, we deposit more fat under the skin, but also, and worse, is that visceral fat also goes up. And so this is why you see a redistribution also of body fat, whereby you have exceptionally high amount of fat in the lower belly area. That's because visceral fat is also going up. So, what are some signs and symptoms of insulin resistance? Lower belly fat, visceral fat, swollen ankles and wrists and joints because you start to retain water at a higher level when you have a lot of insulin because insulin retains electrolytes like sodium, like potassium. And so all these electrolytes also bind to more water. And so you just have a lot more water retention and you just appear almost like puffy, a puffy look And a lot of people, if you can see some success stories, people who follow a ketogenic or a carnivore diet, and they'll show the before and after, even if that person never had to lose actual body fat, you can just see that the swollen look, the puffiness goes away. And that's because that water retention is no longer a problem once you fix insulin resistance. Testosterone. In women, testosterone goes up, and in men, testosterone goes down, which is the exact opposite of what you want. You have a lot of fatigue and hunger right after a meal. Do you ever feel like you're having a meal, and the moment you finish, it's like you're way more deflated? And you had all these things you needed to do after lunch or after dinner, and now you just feel like you can't do any of that. And that's really because of the insulin that is being pumped out, and worse is because you can't handle all of that because you have insulin resistance. And that usually also will lead to sugar and carbohydrate cravings because you're constantly fatigued. And so you feel that you need some external source of energy in the form of a sugar or carbohydrate snack or meal to bring your energy levels up. It's another major red flag that you have insulin resistance. Dark skin patches, especially on skin folds. So you see them on the armpits, on the neck, on the groin area, those darkened skin patches, major sign of insulin resistance. Also, you have this urge to urinate frequently. It's kind of like when people develop diabetes, they also have the same thing. It's a form of like a mild version of diabetes. It happens way before you get full-blown diabetes. Increased thirst because you are urinating a lot more, so you're dehydrated, and so you have more of a drive to ingest more fluids. Also, the hormonal imbalances that are the result of the testosterone being out of range also leads to irregular menstrual cycles and PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome in women. Very common. Skin tags on your neck or armpit, high blood glucose levels, because even though you're pumping out all this insulin to try and bring your blood glucose levels down, the insulin receptors are damaged so that they can't really do their job really well and open up the cell to take up the glucose from your blood and take it into the cell. And so your glucose remains high and insulin remains high, and of course, high fasting insulin. So, what would be the ideal solution here? Sure, a ketogenic diet and a carnivore diet are very powerful ways of fixing insulin resistance. But if you really want to fast track your success, I would definitely combine that with fasting, some form of fasting, like alternate day fasting or intermittent fasting or a rolling fast, or something that I came up with because I really found a lot of benefit with that with my clients, which is a brief fat fast. I have 2 YouTube videos that explain how to do that. You don't do it for too long, but you do it for 3 to 5 days. In intervals, it can really speed up the reversal of insulin resistance, and then that means faster and easier weight loss. Now, one more thing about fasting, I would not recommend jumping into alternate day fasting, like not eating for a full day and then eating on the next day and then not eating for a full day. That's alternate day fasting, or any kind of very long-term fasting. You don't jump right into it. I highly recommend very slowly pushing your first meal of the day by an hour, and then by 2 hours, and then by 3 hours. That way you allow the body, you train the body to be able to fast. It's a muscle, really. Fasting is a muscle. If you need more help in reversing insulin resistance or in weight loss, you can contact us at drzaldivar.com/coaching. And you can check out my guides, drsarahzaldivar.com/shop, especially for the brain bundle that helps you how to raise your baseline dopamine level in order to target the root cause of those cravings, because over a lifetime of eating too much sugars and carbohydrates, you have destroyed a lot of that dopamine machinery in your brain. So you can fix that in a 3-pronged approach. I'm not going to go over it in this video, but it's a 3-pronged approach that I outline in my brain bundle, which is a series of 3 guides. Each one of the guides target a different pathway to raise baseline dopamine level so that you can treat the root cause of food addiction, sugar addiction, carbohydrate addiction, or really any kind of addiction for that matter. But within this context, it's really food addiction or those cravings that you feel that you're constantly having to go back and revert back to your old eating habits. Thank you so much for watching, and you can watch this next video for the top 15 foods that are going to help you reverse insulin resistance. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this quality and type of content, let me know so I can film similar videos on that in the future.